So this is my first video theory crafting before sets come out. I haven't done this before, so I'm going to try to do it in a format where I can easily explain everything to you. And the point of this video is because I want to prepare you for what you should expect to play in ranked. And if you do manage to pull any of these cards, maybe you can build a deck similar to what I'm theory crafting right here. Now, the first card that I want to talk about that I'm really excited for, and it's pretty much the only card I'm super excited for from the leaks. Now we do have like 70 more cards coming out with this pack that we haven't seen yet, so this is just going to be covering what we've seen so far. And the one I'm most excited about is this guy right here, Guzzlord. He's a basic EX, which obviously we know basic EXs are strong with Darkrai and Giratina because they're consistent. And they only take up 2 slots in your deck, so he's going to take up 2 slots. And he also has 170 HP, which is very beefy, very tanky. You can get that up to 190 with Cape, which I don't know if you're going to be running. It also knows Grindcore, and this is really good because you flip a coin until you get tails. For each heads, discard a random energy from your opponent's active. So if you do start with Guzzlord in the active zone, you might be able to attack and just stop them from building up their active, depending on what they have. So that can be good. Also, I do think you're going to want to run 2 Team Rocket Grunts because that's also going to give you another chance when you attack with Grindcore to discard one of their energy. Maybe you run 1 Grunt, 1 or 2, just depending on what you're running in the rest of your deck. But Grunt and Grindcore is a very, very toxic combo that you're going to need to expect to play in ranked. Now, Guzzlord does have a 4 retreat cost. I need to highlight this because you start with him in your active because it is a basic, so you're probably going to start with him sometimes. You need to be able to retreat him. You don't want him to take a ton of damage right away unless you know they're going to build their active, and then maybe you go for a Grindcore gamble attack. So we're running Celesteela because it has the ability Ultra Thrusters. This means once per turn, you may switch your active Ultra Beast with one of your benched Ultra Beasts. So that means you can swap it for itself, right? And then maybe you build up its attack, which is not that good. But if you build up its attack and it gets destroyed, you can activate Lucamine, which you're going to definitely be running 2 of in your deck, in probably every Ultra Beast deck, because it's just so good. It brings back 2 of your discarded energy. So if you say start with Guzzlord, you swap it out for Celesteela, you build it up, attack once, it gets destroyed. Then you send out Guzzlord, and hopefully you'll have energy on it, and then use Lucamine, and then you'll be able to use Tyrannical Hull right away, which is a very sus name. I do want to point that out. But Tyrannical Hull is really good because it's 120 damage for pretty much 2 energy if you use Lucamine. Now, sometimes you're going to want early game damage, so I think a lot of people are going to be running Nihilego. I don't know if I'm saying that right, I'm so sorry. But this guy is very good because he has a 2 energy attack, which does 30 damage and poisons your opponent's active. So keep in mind, 2 energy is good because Lucamine brings back 2 energy. So if Nihilego gets destroyed, its energy pretty much gets moved over onto Guzzlord with Lucamine. And this guy is also really good because, you know, its ability gives plus 10 damage every time your opponent takes poison damage. So that means this is pretty much 2 energy for 50 damage, unless you're like attacking an Arceus, which can't get poisoned. Also, they're pretty much forced to retreat their active unless they want to take 20 more poison damage. So that's pretty solid, and you don't mind losing it at all because the energy just goes to Guzzlord, right? I think you could really just run the 2 of these because of Ilima. Ilima is going to let you retreat Celesteela whenever it takes damage, so it can take some damage, then you retreat it for no cost and go into Guzzlord. Or, I mean, you can retreat it for no cost and then go into this guy right here too if you wanted to. Or you can retreat it for no cost and go into Giratina, because I think Giratina might be played alongside Guzzlord because, you know, you're able to use Broken Space Bellow, build Giratina up at the same time that you put energy on Guzzlord, and just build at the same exact time. So you retreat Celesteela. With Ilima, you go into Giratina. Giratina gets destroyed. Then you go into Guzzlord, and then you finish up the game with Guzzlord. So Giratina is probably going to be played with this too, depending, unless you want to go with the faster build, which is this guy right here. This is the faster way to play it with these 2 right here. But the slower way is Celesteela, Ilima, and Giratina. You can also run Darkrai in here too. I don't know if you're going to do that because then you have to split your energy between Guzzlord and Darkrai, so it's going to be a little bit expensive. But if you build Darkrai, no, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be running Darkrai. I feel like you might be able to fit one of them in there, potentially. Yeah, I guess you could play Darkrai, right? And then you put Darkrai in the active zone, attack with Darkrai early. Whenever it gets destroyed, you go into Guzzlord, and then you use the supporter to bring the energy back onto Guzzlord. So yeah, you could run Darkrai, Celesteela, and Ilima. That's what I think is another deck. So there's like 3 different ways you're going to play this. The Giratina variant, I think all of them are going to run Celesteela. It's just so important for its ability here to be able to retreat Guzzlord, because Guzzlord has that 4 retreat cost, which is pretty brutal. Now, also, I have Poison Barb in here because you're going to have, if you run this variant, the Lego variant, that's just what I'm going to call it. If you run the Lego variant, its ability obviously boosts poison damage. So if you throw a Poison Barb onto your Guzzlord, and since it has 170 HP, it's going to survive an attack. So Poison Barb is going to do 20, right? They're going to get poisoned whenever Guzzlord's attacked. So it just adds some defense and adds some extra damage too, especially if you have Lego on the bench. You could even have 2 Legos on the bench, and then it stacks. I believe it stacks. So that means they're going to take 30 poison damage at every end step, which is crazy. So that means Tyrannical Hull, I guess, could do 150. You could do 150 damage in 1 turn. So there's different ways to play this. I'm excited to see what ends up being the best. I feel like the first one I'm going to try is the Poison Barb, Guzzlord, Celesteela, and Lego. But that might end up not being the best. The best might just be, you know, Giratina with Celesteela, because Giratina is just busted too. Anyways, let's move on to the next card here. Now this one, there's not as many combos with it, but we're going to be talking about Buzzwell. It's another basic EX with 140 HP. Now you can get that up to 170 with Leaf Cape, which is great. It's just a great tool for grass Pokemon. So let's just say he's 170 HP. It can use Punch, so if you start with him early game, you can do 30 damage for 2 energy, which is pretty bad. You probably don't want to start with him at all. Big Beat, also 3 energy, 120 damage during your opponent's next turn. This Pokemon cannot use Big Beat again. So that's a harsh restriction, but there's 2 ways to get around it. The first way is to use Ultra Thrusters, because this isn't considered a retreat when you swap. It's just switching, right? So it doesn't count for your 1 retreat. So what you want to do is you attack with Buzzwell, and then use Ultra Thrusters, swap in a different Ultra Beast, which I think you're going to swap in this one right here. Swap in this Ultra Beast, and then you can put 1 energy on it, use its retreat, and then retreat back into Buzzwell, and then you can use Big Beat 2 turns in a row. Unfortunately, that requires 3 cards to do, right? You need to use 3 cards for that combo to work. You could use a Fossil, which means well, I guess you would need Leaf for this too. You would need Leaf. So that to attack 2 turns in a row with Buzzwell, it's always going to require 3 cards. It's always going to require 3 cards to work. So I added Sprigatito here because it's a very important card. So what I really think you want to do is play 2 Meowscarada lines right here, 2 Buzzwells, and then maybe 1 Celesteela, or I guess actually, yeah, I think just 1, so you can swap later in the game, because I don't think you want to use Buzzwell until later into the game. But you want to start with Sprigatito, obviously, and then use its Cry for Help to search for this guy right here. Find him. Maybe run 1 of him. I don't actually think you need 2. You could probably just run 1 because you're searching with Sprigatito. I think you would just run 1, actually. Yeah. Let me just erase this. I know it's getting out of control here, but let's just say there's 1 of him. You search it, you find it with Sprigatito, you go into Meowscarada, you attack with Fighting Claws, which is actually only 2 energy for 130 damage if they have an EX, which is really good. Now remember that 2 energy is really great because we're running 2 Lucamine, which, you know, brings back 2 energy. So once you lose Meowscarada, you go into Buzzwell, you activate the supporter, and then immediately Big Beat is online, able to do 120 damage right away after you lose 1 Meowscarada. And then hopefully by this point in the game, you have a Celesteela. If not, if you don't want to run Celesteela, maybe you just run 2 Leaves. Maybe you don't even run this. Maybe you just run 2 Leaves. I'll have to experiment with it and see what's more consistent in game. I feel like actually 2 Leaves might just be better. So this card's a little bit sus. 120 damage for pretty much free. Actually, I guess for 1 energy is great though. Lucamine makes this really good. 120 damage for 1 energy, but you also have to have the supporter in your hand too. You need to have both Buzzwell and Lucamine. I don't think it's going to be hard to draw because of Sprigatito. I actually think you have to make this consistent enough. I feel like you have to run the Meowscarada line because Sprigatito's Cry for Help helps with consistency so much. It just lets you search for grass Pokemon every turn, right? So maybe you can even get 2 Meowscarada lines set up before you use Buzzwell. That's like completely optimal. And Buzzwell, maybe the downside of not being able to attack again won't be that big of a deal because you're going to use it so late into the game. It's just going to be a finisher, right? It's just another card to run alongside Meowscarada. Maybe there's more grass combos that you could do that are better than this, but I think this is the best possible one because Cry for Help is just so important, right? You also could run it alongside Kartana too. Maybe you could throw one of them in the deck, like a highlighter right here, maybe just a one of, which is, it's good early game too, just in case you don't start with Sprigatito, and it might be some follow-up also. But grass has a bunch of good support with, you know, Erica. Leaf Cape is also really solid, and then Sprigatito for searching. So I do think the best way for this is going to be the Meowscarada line. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not thinking of something. Let me know in the comments below if you're cooking up anything that I haven't thought of yet. The next card we have here that I want to talk about is Tapu Coco EX. Now this is another basic EX Pokemon. It does have 130 HP, which is a little bit low in the current meta, but that might be okay because it's mainly just going to be used as an early game Pokemon because of its Plasma Hurricane, which allows you to attack for 1 energy, do 20 damage, and take an electric energy from your energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. So if you go second and you get an attack off right away, that means the next turn you're going to have enough energy to use Mach Bolt, which does 90 damage. So on your second turn, if you go second, you're going to be doing 90 damage, which is really good early game presence. Say, for example, your opponent starts with a Giratina. They go first. They get 1 energy. You go second, then you're up to 2 energy. Then it's their turn. They go second, and they get 1 more energy on it, and then 1 more energy on their Darkrai. So they're only at 2 energy on Tina, and you're going to be able to attack for 90 the next turn. So you're going to outspeed Dark Tina if you go second. You'll probably end up destroying Darkrai or Tina, but then they have follow-up. They'll come out and probably just one-shot Tapu Coco, which is the problem. So you'll be able to take down 1 EX, but then they'll just trade you out. So you need some follow-up there. And the follow-up potentially is either, you know, Magnezone. Obviously, it's really good. You can build a stage 2 on the bench, and then you can come out, start doing Thunder Blast right away, finish off their Giratina or their Darkrai potentially. You could also have Luxray. I think Luxray might be super interesting because it does 120 damage, and you can snipe their Benchel Fit. Now you might be thinking it's 3 energy though. Magnezone generates its own. Well, if you have Volkner, it brings back 2 of your discarded electric energy, and when Tapu Coco dies, it's going to drop 3 energy. You bring back 2 energy, you use Volt Bolt, and you can attack for 120 damage. Now this is a stage 2, and it does require a supporter to work, so that's why it might not be as consistent as Magnezone, but I really like that it has no retreat cost. So if you start the game with Luxray out, you can just retreat it into Tapu Coco whenever you want, or even retreat it into Oricorio if you run Oricorio. Oricorio also is great because it's an electric type. This whole deck is going to be electric, so you can actually use it. It kind of shuts down EX Pokemon, which is great. You could also try running Xurkitree, I think that's what it's called, which confuses your opponent's active. It costs 3 energy and it's a 60 damage. So if you lose Tapu Coco, you can use a new supporter, bring back 2 energy, and then start attacking for 60 and confusing them right away. So that could be a little bit of follow-up. I just don't know if it's strong enough because it only has 100 HP and it only does 60 damage. So I don't know if you're going to want to follow up with the Xurkitree. Maybe that's like a tech you could run. I think the better combo that we might see is just not use Tapu Coco at all. Just run Oricorio and run Xurkitree in the same deck, because you start with Oricorio, you do a bunch of damage to him, it gets destroyed, you go into Xurkitree, then you use the new supporter, and then you can attack the next turn for 60. And these are both non-EXs, so they're only each going to give up 1 point. So they get rid of Oricorio, that's only 1 point. You go into Xurkitree, they're confused, whatever, you screw them up a little bit, do some damage, that's 2 points. And then you follow up with Magnezone, and then finish up the game. So we might just, Xurkitree might be like a nice, cute little tech for electric decks that don't run EX Pokemon. I could easily see that happening. It might be just some nice electric support. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see it being used and just no Tapu Coco being used. But I think the best way to play Tapu Coco is probably with like Magnezone and Oricorio alongside it, or just Magnezone You know, Luxray could be a fun way to play it too, and Luxray might be better follow-up because you can snipe their bench, right? But you only really have one attack with Luxray. With Magnezone, you can keep attacking for 110 each turn. So Luxray might not be as strong. The more consistent version is probably going to be Magnezone. I saw some people talking about 18 trainer Tapu Coco. I just don't think that's going to work because they're obviously going to destroy one of your Tapu Cocos because it only has 130 HP. So if you try to follow up with another, you're not going to have enough energy, right? Like it's going to get destroyed before you can get 6 energy out onto the field, right? So I think you're going to have to play it with some follow-up support, which is going to be one of these guys. Let me know what you guys think. That's all I've cooked up because those were like the biggest cards from this new set. I am thinking about a couple more things, but maybe I'll make another video on that. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you later.